I got the Julia Child cookbook, and not that I was going to do every recipe, but I did several of the recipes and filmed like each step of the process and uploaded them to my YouTube channel. So if anybody's interested, my channel is the Tracie Lee. I mean, if you want to see how to make beef bourguignon or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And you're how old then? Or is this like current that you're doing?
When was I doing these videos?
Yeah, when were you doing? Last week? Hello and welcome to the Inspired Woman Podcast. I'm Marcy Narum. This podcast is dedicated to impacting a multitude of women with its mission to celebrate, encourage, empower, educate, entertain, and connect women. What a treat today to have Miss Tracie Bettenhausen join us on the Inspired Woman Podcast. Tracie, thanks for coming.
Hi, Marcy.
Is this your first podcast?
It really is.
Yeah?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I notice how they tend to laugh in this certain way. And so now I'm very thinking about how I'm going to laugh during this podcast.
Okay. Well, we can laugh a lot. You make me laugh.
Okay.
So, and I love your laugh.
Okay.
So I guess we know each other from working in television news together, and we share so much in common. And I've always admired you for your work ethic, and you have such a talent for writing. And so I don't know where we want to start, but maybe let's talk about where you're from and tell us about like growing up on a farm.
Okay. So I grew up on a farm 5 miles west of Wishick, North Dakota. And it was a grain farm, mostly wheat. I remember at points we had flax and canola. By the time I was leaving the farm, I started driving the tractor when I was 14 years old. I actually started the year that I went to California with my aunt. And the deal was that I was going to pay off my trip to California with my aunt. And so I got paid $3 an hour to drive the tractor. And it took me all that summer and a little bit of the next summer. And I got a raise the next summer to like $4 an hour or something.
All right.
Paid off that whole trip driving tractor and then continued that until I think the summer after my senior year of college. Then that's when I got my internship in TV news. And it was all onward and upward from there.
That's right. Onward and upward to Basin, where you've been since.
Yes, since KX. So that was 2007 when I came to Basin.
And what do you do at Basin?
So I'm in the communications area. So I'm editor for our public websites, which are basenelectric.com and dakotagas.com. I take care of our social media, our Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I write for our magazine and our newsletter, and I once a month the board of directors comes into town, and so I get to sit through those meetings, and I run their PowerPoints and take notes, and then I bring back what I learned to the rest of the communications department, and then I get to put together like a little mini newscast that we then send out to all of our members and our employees, and that's just a way of reporting on what the board decided on that month, and then I write a summary for that. So it's a week out of every month. So that tends to be like a large part of what I do, but I love it. I've learned so much working there about the energy industry and what makes it tick.
Yeah. Well, I should mention too that you're a part of the Inspired Woman team. You started out you're a writer, but you're also on the advisory board, and I appreciate you so much for, like I said, your writing is just so, you've got a style that I really enjoy. And the story that you wrote about the farm last fall, was it?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that was one that really hit home, and I had goosebumps and tears when I read that one. Do you want to reflect on it any bit? Anyway?
Yeah, so I mean, that story was obviously a big deal to me. I wanted it to be good, and I wanted it to tell it the way I knew it But I also wanted it to be fair, to everybody who's involved. But at the same time, I didn't want my family to see it before it ran. So that's a whole thing there. But I remember I take a lot of walks during the summer. And I had been honestly putting it off for a while because like a story, it's so easy to procrastinate when you're like trying to think about how you're going to write something. Like you feel like you need a hook or a way that you're going to tell the story. And you want it to be kind of artsy. And so like I had put it off, and it was the night before the deadline that you guys had given me. And I'm walking and I'm like, I got to come up with something. And I don't remember why this popped into my mind, but I was like, what if I think about like memories I've had in different areas of the farm and then tie them to the day of the farm auction? And I was like, I can work with that because, I know that farm like the back of my hand, and I can think of all these different memories. So like try to pick out some of the memories that I can tell in a most concise way, and then link them to the day of the auction. And that's how I did that. And then I do like the way it turned out. I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember now what issue it was.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
God, was it like September or October maybe?
Yeah. I think it was in the fall.
Yeah.
It was good. Anyway, people, if you want to look it up, it's inspiredwomanonline.com. But yeah, so I see you post on Facebook all the time. You've got an amazing garden. You've got beautiful flowers that you grow.
Yeah.
Was it nurtured on the farm, or where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a good question because, so we did have a garden, like maybe when I was like junior high or so, starting about then and after we had a garden. But honestly, Mom did all the work. We didn't help. I just remember, we would always have these awesome cucumber and onion and tomato cut up and then made with salt and pepper and cream, like the best way to eat stuff from the garden. I remember that as being one of my favorite things to eat. We didn't help that much. And so, we did help because my mom had a tiny little flower bed in the front of the house at that time, and then a bunch of flower pots. I remember back in the drought years, there was like lots and lots of grasshoppers. And so that had to have been like around when I was 7, 8, 9 or so. And I remember Dad gave us the job of like going into Mom's flower beds and picking off the grasshoppers and tearing their heads off. Like we were going to be the ones to save the flowers from the grasshoppers. But I'm sure it was just, giving us something to do with our hands.
Now we've got to put a violence disclaimer on this Inspired Woman podcast.
Things got grisly fast.
What do you like to grow now in your yard?
So I have 2 vegetable garden plots where I have tomatoes, potatoes, onions, peppers, eggplants. I love growing eggplant because they're so pretty, like that purple color, and then they're so compact. Like the plants are pretty, plus they're compact, so I like that. Mostly like all the normal things that people grow in a garden. And then like the first or second year after I got my house is when I started getting into perennials. And it's gone a little too far, if I'm going to be honest. My yard there had been nothing done to it really before I got to it. And so I like manually took a shovel and made myself a flower bed all along the one fence, and it's huge. And so I dug up chunks with the shovel and put them to the side. And then I took all the soil off the bottom of the grass. And so I made this huge flower bed by hand. And then I filled it up with perennials. But I was pretty careful because I knew they would spread. But then over time, of course, you just keep adding. And then all of a sudden you dig up a whole nother chunk of the yard and put perennials in that. And then you start to think maybe I'm taking the value of my home downwards because somebody's going to look at this yard and think, what am I going to do with all these perennials? Oh, well, they're beautiful. I just love seeing things grow in the spring. And the nice thing about perennials is that you don't have to do anything. You just kind of clean up the leaves that are around it and they just start growing. I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're a nurturer.
Of plants, yes.
And so spending time in the kitchen, did you do any of that on the farm too?
Yeah. I remember when I wanted to start cooking supper for the family. And so mom let me, and I can't remember if was I fifth grade? Could that make sense? I don't know. But I do remember like doing like box cake mixes, but then like pretending to be Julia Child in my mind. Like I would do like this little TV show as I was cooking. Yeah.
Did you talk like Julia Child?
I don't think so, but it was probably just as awkward. You know what I mean? I'm sure it wasn't pleasant. Yeah, and I've always liked cooking. I don't know if people remember the flip cameras when they came out. They were super easy to use, little video cameras that you could just super easy put together videos. And so when those came out, I started making a bunch of videos and made myself a YouTube channel. And so plus I had just watched Julie and Julia. And so I got the Julia Child cookbook, and not that I was going to do every recipe, but I did several of the recipes and filmed like each step of the process and uploaded them to my YouTube channel. So if anybody is interested, my channel is the Tracie Lee. I mean, if you want to see how to make beef bourguignon or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And you're how old then? I mean, or is this like current that you're doing?
When was I doing these videos?
Yeah, when were you doing? Last week?
I'm sorry. Well, like my mid-20s to early 30s.
Oh, okay. Your Julia Child phase.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And honestly, I tried doing one like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm like, how did I do this? I have not done another one since then. Yeah.
Well, it was the beginning of your TV days.
Yes. Well, it might have been my late 20s to early 30s.
Okay.
Whatever.
The Tracie Lee.
Yes.
Any baking? I mean, I know you've got a story you want to tell us.
Oh, I do. So my brother, I was talking to my brother about like, what do you remember about when we were growing up? And it's funny, like the things that they remember that you don't. So he had this story about, I was either in high school or college, and he came home and he needed a pie for the FFA, pie and ice cream social. And so, of course, it's last minute. And so we're looking through the cupboards to see what we can find. And we found a graham cracker crust and one package of chocolate pudding. And so I remember my grandma making chocolate pudding pies over Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm like, I think we can do something with this. But you make the one package of pudding, and it leaves a very thin layer at the bottom of the pie crust. So we had a tub of Cool Whip. So I said, let's fill it up with Cool Whip. And I kind of made the top kind of fancy, and maybe I like swirled some like Hershey's chocolate syrup or something on top. Anyway, it looked very nice. So Casey, proudly took it in to the pie and ice cream social. Everybody oohed and awed, and then set it on the table and walked away. Well, then when it came time to start cutting it, he was there, but they didn't know whose pie it was at that point anymore. And so they're oohing, oh, look at this pie. And so they're cutting into it, and they take out a slice, and they said, what? This is a Cool Whip pie. Busted. And then my brother said, that pie was all show and no go.
That didn't make your show, the Tracie Lee YouTube channel.
No, but I should do a look back.
There you go.
Adventures
and you can
in
have
Tracie's
Casey,
kitchen. Yes,
you can have Casey, do a little commentary for it too.
Right. Yes.
I want to go back to talking about the days in TV news.
Okay.
Did you just work at one TV station or a couple?
Yep. Well, okay. So I interned at KVLY in Fargo for like 2.5 months, and then I got my job at KX. And yeah,
and that's where we got to work together.
Yes.
Do you have any particular memories there that you want to share?
There are so many memories. Yeah. So many. And I learned so much doing that job, and I'm so thankful I did, because it's one of those things where if you didn't at least go for it, you would have always wondered what would have that been like, And so just so thankful I did that. But the one story that I tell probably most often, and I just told it to my coworkers not too long ago. I can't remember why, but it reminded me. So there was one summer when I was, I was wearing like sandals, like open toe sandals. And there's the staircase in KX that it's like back in like a storage type area, and the stairs are made out of metal. And at the very end of the staircase is this very hard concrete wall. And so I'm walking down the stairs, and it was like, the reason we went up and down these stairs was to get back and forth to the control room. And so you're usually moving pretty fast as you're trying to go from one place to the next. So I'm walking down the stairs. I'm holding on with my left hand to the handrail. And the tip of my shoe catches the lip of one of the metal stairs. And I started falling face first down the stairs. And so obviously this is all moving very quickly, but the front of my body was not hitting the stairs. So I can only assume I was like flying down the stairs, but my hand was sliding down the handrail as I was going. And I know that because when I got to the end of the handrail, which made a bend down toward the floor, my hand caught that edge and it whipped me in a counterclockwise half circle, so that my butt landed on the floor, my back of my head hit the concrete wall, and my legs ended up so that my feet were like 3 stairs up. So if you can imagine how I like flipped around and landed. And I just kind of like sat there. I was stunned for a while, and eventually got up and went into the newsroom and told people what just happened, because nobody witnessed this, and it was crazy. But I tell this story because I truly feel like I know what it's like to be thinking you're just about to die. Because as I was going, I truly thought to myself, this is it. And it was okay. I was totally at peace in that moment, because I thought my head was going to run into that concrete wall.
Well,
it just not total impact. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
I know. And so it's kind of a strange story, but at the same time, I feel like I know what that moment feels like, and it was okay. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is. I mean, but it's wonderful. I mean, that you have that sense of peace. And I also have to say that when I've heard you tell that story, I still was imagining it, the other staircase where, like when you come down the steps from the water cooler.
Yeah. Toward the audio booth.
This is even more terrifying now that I've figured it out here that you were on those metal stairs.
Yeah.
You're a survivor.
I know.
The fact that you lived to tell this is amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
And only those who've worked there and have gone up and down those stairs truly understand.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
So that sense of peace that you had in that moment, do you find that in other areas of your life?
I haven't had a moment like that. That's the other thing, is the winter following that summer, I rolled my car on the interstate on 994, and I did not have that same feeling like, oh, this is it and I'm about to die, because like in a car you're surrounded by a hard shell, and everything was going to be okay. So I have not had a moment like that again, but I've been doing I can't remember, maybe last year or something, I started listening to the 10% Happier podcast, which is it's Dan Harris at ABC News, and he talks to all these different people about meditation, and it's super interesting. And then I read his book, and then just as life has gone on, whenever I see somebody who's going to be talking about meditation, I'm just super interested to hear what they have to say, because there's so many benefits, and it's something that anybody can do, and it's fairly simple. I would love if I would set myself up with a meditation practice, but I never have. But it's nice to think about. But anyway, so part of it is, just being able to sit and notice your breath going in and out. And if you can just focus on your breath, if it's for one breath, if it's for 2 breaths, and then all of a sudden you realize your head is going to start wandering away, you bring it back, you're meditating. Focus on another breath, focus on another breath. And so if you think about that more often, and think about how you have this constant story going on in your head. And if you can interrupt the story with thinking about your breath, it's a powerful thing, because then all of a sudden you realize you can kind of control your mind. And once you can control your thoughts, you can control your actions, which is, I mean, it's a very powerful thing then. And so just a couple of just cool instances I've had since I've been thinking about this more often was, one of them was on the farm. And it was the day we were moving out. And so, like, the whole family was there, and it was very stressful. There was a lot of stuff to move out of the house. It was crazy.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was just, anybody who was there will tell you it was crazy. But there was one moment when everybody was in the house, and I could hear them, and I just, like, sat down in the garage, and I'm like, and I just sat there in my stillness, and I could hear the birds in the shelter belt. And I was like, this is the sound of my childhood. Like, this is what I heard every day of my life.
I just got goosebumps.
It gives me goosebumps whenever I think about it or talk about it, because I was never going to hear that in that way again. I mean, and if I hadn't thought about just, like, sitting and being there with my stillness up until that moment, probably would have not noticed the birds. But once I heard them, I'm like, I remember hearing that every day. Yeah. So
it was a conscious effort to just be still.
Yes.
Yeah. And the awareness, probably.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, great power, I mean, in recognizing what meditation can do, I guess.
Yeah. And then just one other moment I had, and this one was much more recently and not as goosebumpy, but still helped me think about, like, how I can have more control of my actions. So I got to attend IABC Leadership Institute. So I'm a member of a regional board for a group that's called the International Association of Business Communicators. And so I get to go to these big events. And there's all these people that I'm very intimidated by at these events, just because they're generally more far along in their careers and well-respected and have been doing this for many years. And I always just feel kind of just intimidated and not sure if I, like, know enough to be speaking up, or, all those things that I think most people, when it comes down to it, we're all so similar when it comes to that. But you look at other people and you don't see that, because everybody can act so confidently. When I tell people about this group, I always say they all talk so smart. They just talk so smart. But anyway, so I'm at Leadership Institute, which is in Long Beach, California. And I get to go to the Council of Regions meeting, because I'm the vice chair of the regional board. And so the Council of Regions is all the chairs of the regional board. So this is a group I'm going to be sitting on next year, but I'm not yet. But, the vice chairs got invited, so I get to go to this big meeting. Well, because of travel issues, the chair of our board wasn't able to make it. So I was the only representative from our region sitting at this table. I'm like, and I had been up since, 3 that morning, because I'd been flying in from Bismarck and wasn't able to get into my hotel room. So I'm in a sweatshirt and jeans, and my hair's all over the place, and I'm wearing my glasses and no makeup. And I'm just like, you want to feel good going into something like that. And there was just none, I was not on the top of my game, plus being tired, and then plus feeling intimidated. And so I'm sitting at this table, and the meeting starts, and, everybody's, asking their great questions and giving their great input. And I have something to say about something, but I just know how it comes out when I start talking, and, I want to be able to say it in the right way, but the moment's going to pass me by, that's, how that is in a meeting. And there was these huge windows along the side of the meeting room, and you could see out into Long Beach, the city of Long Beach, and the water's there and the palm trees. And I looked out at that, and all of a sudden I thought, I'm never going to be here again. Not in this moment. This is my moment. I have to say what I'm thinking right now. This is never going to happen again. So So I was like, excuse me. I gave my my 2 cents about whatever we were talking about. And I was like, that wasn't so bad. Like, that was okay. And then I was telling a couple of the ladies who were in there the next day. I didn't go into all of that, but just, how I, felt so, I didn't want to speak up, and then just finally did, and how good that felt. And they were like, I would have never thought you were feeling like that. You did just fine. You had some great points. So I'm like, it's just, if people can think about that, and then like take advantage of moments when they see them, like just think about how much influence each one of us could have.
Yeah. Do you attribute that to your meditation too?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know if I really thought about it at the time, but I thought about it later, because we actually had a session on meditation at this, which was fantastic. It was awesome. And as we were sitting there and the lady was talking about all these different things associated with meditation, I was like, yeah, that's what happened right then and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I got goosebumps. Seriously, when you talked, I could just picture you looking out the window and recognizing that that's your moment, and you won't be back.
Right.
So.
I know. And life is made up of all of these moments that we
Yeah.
just have to take advantage of.
Do you think it's just fear? We get in our own way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're telling ourselves this story about why what we're about to say doesn't matter, or why they weren't going to care about what we think, or why we don't have enough experience to say what we're about to say. We all have these stories constantly going, but that doesn't mean they're true. And so if you can like interrupt your story and say, wait a minute, no, and do what you think is right.
I think that's probably a perfect description of how meditation can help, that you're interrupting yourself, your own thoughts.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Focusing.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Tracie. I love it. We've talked about, work and your farm life a little bit. And we mentioned the farm. Your parents auctioned the farm,
Yes.
moved off the farm last fall.
Yep.
Everybody's doing okay?
Yeah. My parents are living in Bismarck. I know my mom's been having a great time. She's been going to yoga classes and water aerobics. And I know my dad he's planning to build a shop this upcoming summer. He already has all the groundwork done for that, so that he'll have his place again where he can fix his machinery or whatever he's doing in his shop. I know they live in an area where there's lots of mature trees, and so they're able to Dad's able to go out and pick up the logs or whatever, and they have a bonfire out there. And so I think they're doing okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely a transition, but yeah.
Sounds like some country living still for them.
Yeah. Everybody has space, which was a huge thing for them. So yeah, they have that.
And your brother is with the food co-op.
Yes, produce manager at the Bizman Community Food Co-op,
Yeah.
and he loves it. And it seems like the customers love him, and he's just he remembers so many facts about all of the different fruits and vegetables, and he loves to share that. And to me, that's so interesting. Like every time I go in there and I happen to see him, he has another new fact to tell me about something. I'm like, what the heck? That's crazy.
He could really sell snow to Eskimos. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. He's a great representative for the Bisman Food Co-op. He got me to try
Kombucha?
Kombucha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think?
I tried it. But you drink kombucha, don't you?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's an acquired taste, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
But can you describe what it is?
Oh, I don't know. I know they have something called a SCOBY, and I think it's basically like fermented tea, but that SCOBY has something to do with it to give it, I don't know, the pizzazz or the sizzle or whatever that it has. And it's carbonated in a way. It's fermented tea. I mean, that's about as much as I know.
Okay.
And I know it can have like a very low alcohol content, like because of the fermentation, I think.
Is it like a detoxifying drink? Is that...
I don't know. I mean, I know they say, there's potential health benefits. I don't know. I mean, to me, so if I don't want to drink pop because it's full of sugar, and I don't want to drink beer because it's full of calories and alcohol, to me, kombucha is a good middle of the road. Gives me a little bit of flavor, a little bit of zip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know when he he was handing these samples out at an event I was at, and I was like, oh, look at Casey. I was just so impressed, and I tried it, and I remember him talking about health benefits, and yeah, I haven't. It's like all in the past
It's
now.
passed you by.
Yeah, not my thing.
Yeah.
I think you've already answered this question, and I'm sorry, I should have asked you or told you earlier that this was a question I'd be asking you.
Okay.
I'd like to close with the question. The tagline for Inspired Woman is, she believed she could, so she did. And is there a time in your life that you can think that applied to you?
Well, I mean, I will say when I started the Bizman community, or I'm talking about the co-op now, the Basin's Backyard Garden. I mean, that was one of
Yes.
those times, and it just came up during one of our writers' meetings. We were just talking about like what are different ways we can get more employees ingrained in the cooperative business model, and it was just one of the ideas that came up, and it just seems so simple and something that we could do without like a ton of effort. Or I mean, it would take effort, but it's just a simple thing to do. Basically take a chunk of the lawn at Basin and till it up and make a garden in it, and then have the employees volunteer to weed it and harvest it and all that, and then all of the vegetables are donated to local food pantries. And it's a very simple concept, and like, you know, you need the help of all of the volunteers you have, you know, because we're all working hard every day. And so, you know, we have to do this on our breaks and our lunch hours and after work. And so, you know, it takes effort from everybody to make it work. But I mean, that was one of those times. And I remember one of the senior management at the time saying, yeah, I didn't think you were going to get that done. Never would have thought you would have made that work. And we did. I mean, we did make it work. So that's how I would answer that.
Well, I think of you as somebody who does, I mean, if you get your mindset to something, you're going to make it happen, you know? So, you know, to hear you, to think about that, and then to think about you sitting in that meeting in your sweatshirt and your glasses on and no makeup, it's like, yeah, of course she's going to speak up. She's Tracie.
I know.
Yeah.
I keep my mouth shut very often.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you took time to sit down and visit and let our listeners and viewers get to know you a little bit better. And I'm so glad you're part of the team. Look forward to reading more of your stories in Inspired Woman.
Thank you, Mercy. I love the direction you're going with Inspired Woman, and it's going to be great. I mean, it always has been great, but I see big things for this. So good work on that.
Thanks. The Inspired Woman podcast is sponsored by Quantum Productions, the home of the award-winning director and cinematographer Nolan Johnson. He creates unique high-end video products throughout the Midwest. You can check him out at quantumprond.com.